Okay, we're now at this wall right down here in the southeastern corner, right about in the center of the page right now where that little hook is. Here, a picturesque little restaurant carved into a niche on this mountainside or hillside. Now, if you had a home with this kind of view and you had a reason to be there, it would be lovely. Very much as I had in Manhattan Beach. Just a pretty little street that parallels the wall on the inside. Not a street that the average tourist would be on. Here we can see that someone has a home and a garden area. That must be expensive real estate. Right up next to the wall. And other than having hordes of people looking down on you from the wall, pretty neat layout. Here, a pretty little neighborhood square up on top. The allure of these early morning walks down these quiet residential streets is to imagine the homes I'm walking past that I can never see, or not now anyway. The lives that are being led, the lives that were led here over time. When I go back down and the hordes arrive around 9 off their cruise ships, all of this nostalgia, this historical ambiance that I search for evaporates in the cacophony of their aimless wandering. You would cause that to be so neatly bent unless it was necessary to reconform it to inside of that window at some point. This appears to be the entranceway to a church, but maybe it was just a dramatic family crest emblazoned entrance to another wealthy person's former palace. That was a residential area. I ended up talking to the gentleman who lives there, perhaps owns it, speaks English. And there I see people climbing up on the wall, so I'll immediately do that. The juxtaposition of laundry in that pretty little balcony, if you will. So somehow I have to get over there. Interesting, what's so quaint to me is so ordinary to the people who live here. Kind of like those of us who have great views of the Tetons take it for granted. My problem is to get out of the labyrinth here and get down to another level where I can move. Here up on the wall for roughly $10. Now, if I understand correctly, you used to be able to walk the entire circuit of the wall. But I find these city starts reducing that amount when they don't want to maintain it and know they can get away with it. Quick snapshot from. I can see that the dome is open. That's interesting. Of course, always from the high point you get an idea of the churches. There's also a mosque here I'll have to search out just for a matter of form. I think that's St. Ignatius up there. You can imagine that throughout time this little view has held a lure for any number of different enterprises. I wonder if you can get access to that fort there. The rounded design of this tower wall is interesting. It's the first time I've seen that. Normally they're straight up. They're a cannon port as it might have been seen from the outside. This is interesting. It's a hint of ruin. Whether it's relatively recent ruin or not, I don't know, but those bricks would suggest that part's relatively new. A side entrance. The wall's only purpose may have been just support between these walls. Here the lifestyle of the people who live just behind the wall. The price for having people be able to stare into your kitchen, or like with a video camera, go right inside. This is probably an old well, probably functioned as a cistern underneath it, because I don't know how you'd get water from this high up. Talk about a small but phenomenal location for this context. So here we have a mock view of, well, it's not really mock, it's the view. If a cannon were here, this is what it would see. And these cupolas, which remind me so much of what you see in parts of China for the policemen to stand in, believe it or not, in local communities and local areas, protects them from the hordes. And now vehicles you could observe up here, making it far more difficult for anybody but an amazing shot to hit them. We take a look into someone's backyard, heavily foliaged, with an apple tree no less, and whatever kind of tree this is. And this is the home I looked at earlier when I was walking along that road over that way, getting to the wall. See the flowers over there. This is a heck of a lot of real estate up here for a garden. And they made it clear that neither they nor you should pass between by this route. And here, this little patch of land so beautifully landscaped appears to be no access to an actual residence, so maybe it's just a park for these people up here. That's the little restaurant I was looking down on earlier this morning. This perhaps is a school. Has that look about it, but with a very beautiful basketball court. I think behind us there is St. Ignatius Church. It's interesting that no one's turned the top of this building into a patio. And here a very small church with the remnant of its small little bell holder. And unfortunately the stonework that was above that entrance has all been taken away, hopefully to be restored and replaced. And there the dome of the cathedral. But we'll take another look into whatever this area is, or whatever it belongs to. Notice the substantial crack, vertical crack in that wall directly opposite us above this little restaurant area. We can see here that this garden, how it's related, orientated to St. Ignatius Church in that square. Can't quite make out the design of this, but I think, although it's all rusted out, that the one on the left has, in essence, a wind vane on the top, and right above the funnel for the smoke to come out. And then that white portion there probably would have held a similar device that spun on that axis. Pretty little area. How's that little kid learn how to speak this language? Joke. Tell me, doesn't just this little vignette give you a little hint as to how these folks live? Unlike this lovely landscaped area here, what caught my attention was that little balcony that once was the same. It had green foliage there. It had perhaps very lovely views, but now abandoned. Here's the restoration of this building. Now it looks like they're covering over the original stone with just a layer of cement, hopefully not to make it smooth like this wall here. Here a large area of ruin. What it was, no clue. Obviously it's been cannibalized for its material over the eons. You can also get an idea of how some of this visual that we see is created. Here is just a surface of rock, thin, over the rough rock, whereas what I saw in Montenegro were 6 to 8 inch cubes of true rock. It's interesting on this adjacent building how they've left illusions of stone in the wall. For what aesthetic purpose I can't, or even historical purpose I can't divine. Here we get a closer look at what they're doing. Again, it seems like it's rough surface in order to apply the smooth surface. As part of the cannibalization process, you can see how the stones that formed the arch on that wall have been taken away and used for some other purpose. So we're at the back of another small church. I don't know which one it is, but it makes for a pretty architectural feature for these people. Just a pan from this corner. Certainly the view from these homes could be interesting with this array of islands as opposed to just looking out at solid water. I surmise the wall ends here. Whether it actually did or not, I don't know. Here we see the front of that same church. Very plain design, blocky plain design. Nothing terribly elegant about churches there. Here another well of relatively recent design. And the entry to this church, often the only thing that was interesting. And these hold stones, I believe, were for holding like rods with some kind of curtain on them. Look at that pretty little balcony. Imagine if someone chose to put a little seat out there so they can enjoy some fresh air and watch the peeps go by, thousands of them every day. Guillotine? Pourquoi? So apparently old cannon. With a cannon this big, shooting at a ship that got this far. Certainly if there was any powder and shot left, the ship had, you would think, very little future. So once again, if you lived here, it'd be pretty cool to have your boat tied up here. And you could ignore it, as most boat owners do for most of the time. But these people aren't. They're going to do something. If we just walked the wall, I have to wonder what all of that superstructure up there was for. Church, of course. We'll keep walking because this is a continuation of the wall, just at a lower level. And here you can see people doing the ideal thing, a little lounge chair for sitting in. You can see people set up to enjoy some air and watch the tourists not more than 30 feet away walk by. And here I think we're looking at St. Blaise Church, I think. Unless it's not, it's the cathedral, excuse me. Cathedral again, from a different viewpoint. As I pan around, we can see down to that right turn on the street, the main street, there's the tower, clock tower. It's the rector's palace, and you can imagine how elegantly that must have been furnished when it could be afforded to have the architectural detail on the outside. Of course, this was in a powerful city, and these were powerful humans who controlled these buildings. What's interesting to me is what's causing this roof to turn up at the seam and buckle across the center here. Is the building itself structurally moving? This is interesting. It looks like a sailboat without the hypocrisy. They got rid of the mast and used it as many sailboats are as a power boat. Looks like the wall does continue there and up that way and ultimately up where those people are. These steps look graphically pretty, don't they? They seem to set up the flow upward, if you will, of that archway that peaks gothically, casting Jesus ever into the firmament. Another little church or two. This just struck me as possibly a really old building, but quite probably not. Here, a tight little panorama of these two small churches and a large clock tower behind it. And just to continue the several churches that we can see there, including the St. Ignatius Way in the background on the right and the cathedral. Boatworks. Here a sense of the massiveness of the inland wall, which is significantly thicker than the seaside wall. I'm always intrigued by something that looks like ruins. That is, of course. But maybe it's just a civic little gardenette, if you will. Primarily to make the whole place look prettier, because I can't see a residential access to it, although there are steps down there. And here, looking at the clock tower, I think we'll see something interesting in that bell. Yes, it's a statue that ends up ringing the bell, but it's seldom, if ever, seen except from here. Didn't realize until now that I thought I'd read about a cable car. Don't know what you get from there except a bigger view of the same. So how lovely a place to sit is that patio covered by a vine arbor. And you can see others. Here a small one, not quite as pretty, but may even have outstanding views. Can't tell for sure if it can see right straight through to the water. That one there would look like it could, but doesn't take much advantage of it. This one does. What a magnificent view. Imagine what you pay to rent that place. Can you get the sense here of roofs cascading down to the center of town along the stratum there? It's interesting how some places go well used. That looks like a restaurant. It is, because that's a main walkway there, so that makes sense. But why wouldn't these people bother? Whether it was ever truly like this in design, who knows? Most of this kind of reconstruction many cities do, on the most visible part of a fortress tower or a wall. Here we're inside a dome. Get a little sense of the construction method, or not method, but what it looks like. I was thinking for a moment about the hoopla and the stories surrounding the men who might have formed a cannon squad that successfully killed a boat out there, if it ever happened. Not even sure if the tour boat cruisers have been got here yet, but it has that look about it, like the Great Wall in China. There's no end to the Dietrichs that people will buy and fill up their house. I don't know what this church is. It's covered up here in front by a restaurant's tables. Pretty tree right next to Nautica restaurant, right on the Pile bus square. Starting to cool down ever so slightly. Down at the right-hand corner on Stratum. That brood sounds like those little toys you can get for your kid if you want to hear that sound for the rest of your life. This is a pretty little shop. I think tonight is the night, one of the nights of the concert that I was watching the rehearsal of last night. Even as the night cools down, the heat coming from the air conditioners as you walk along blows on you. The cathedral. Rector's Palace, looking back down at the right angle, and the clock tower, and St. Blaise Church. I'm standing on the steps of the cathedral side entrance. Everybody here is addicted to and watching the soccer matches. I think it's still the big tournament This kind of old-fashioned looking door I saw in China. That right side is for like a shop. That a little shopkeeper would open that up to do business. The tradition of standing on the stone apparently requires that you stand on it facing the rock, and then you turn around facing with your back to the wall, take your shirt off. If you can do all that, something good happens to you, but I can't remember what the good is. My favorite ice cream shop down there where that ice cream cone of plastic is. Lady works from as early as it was I got here, maybe 7:30 or 8, until still working. She has some young children. She works 9 months a year, and then the winter comes and she closes. The strangest in style in the Balkans that I've seen, and maybe in Europe, are these incredibly high heels. Some of the women who don't know how to walk in them almost look contorted, like they were walking on stilts, like this lady here, or a young girl. It also reminds me of people walking in wooden shoes. Some women can walk in them gracefully, but many cannot. And some are this style, which you would think would give more stability, but they look very clumsy. Man in the white is the Minister of Tourism for Dubrovnik, or Croatia, I don't know which.